Yeah, I'm on camera. On camera, Ezekiel, or Amir, whatever you call yourself, or whatever name you go by. You know, it's crazy to, it's crazy. You might think it's crazy for me to do a response like this, again. But I want to tell you face to face, if you will, if you're listening, you're watching. You know, I have nothing against what Ian Flynn would or would not do if he had been writing the book since the beginning. I've nothing against that. You know, but the thing is, you go with what you have. You go with what you have. Now, I'm not denying that Ian Flynn wouldn't have written something differently. I'm not denying that. But Ian Flynn, like the guy or not, at least he has an understanding that somehow you've got to have a continuation of some sorts to a story like what we had at the end of 125 and continue towards the end in 134. He understands you need some kind of climax or some kind of shocker, as he likes to pull out of his hat every now and then. So I'm not saying he wouldn't have gone in the direction Carl Bowler's would have. He would have done it but I believe Ian Flynn would have done it in a similar way to where you wouldn't have had a slap. You would have had more like Sally saying, okay, if that's your choice, fine. But then that means if you choose to fight, that means there's no us anymore. And that would have made a little bit more sense, because it would have been, you could have had a walk-off, you could have had like that little shadowy thing they do over the eyes, just have a walk-off and, just say that. And then end the issue there. It would have been more effective. And I think Ian Flynn would have done something similar to that. But you see, Ian, when he wrote about Sally, when Ian writes Sally's character, just like he writes any character, he writes it in his own unique way. Yes, he has to stay true to what made the character who they are. But he also understands he's got to put his own uniqueness into that character. When Ken Penders wrote Sally, a lot of people felt that Ken Penders was probably one of the best. Before, a lot of people said he flew off the cuckoo's nest, or before he became one with the cuckoo's nest. That Ken Penders basically was one of the best writers of Sally's character, Sonic's character, Bunny, Antoine's, to ever come along in a long time. And again, this is before a lot of people say he fell off his rocker. Because you had great stories, you had great characterizations of the stories, you had great backstory with the characters, everything. And even with that, with Ken Penders doing that with the characters, making them into who they are, making them to what made them who they were, even on the Saturday morning show, he still added his own uniqueness. Mike Gallagher is the same way. He still added his own uniqueness. Carl Bowlers, whether you like the guy or not, added his own uniqueness. Now, I'm not saying Carl Bowlers didn't want to. Now, speaking of Carl Bowlers, I'm not saying the guy didn't want to have Sonic end up with Mina. Pretty much, when a writer comes on board, from what I've understood and learned throughout my life, when a writer comes on board, whether it's a co-writer or a head writer, they always want to put their own unique take on something. And if Carl Bowlers felt like, well, Mina's going to soon discover she has speed, or learn she has speed, well, basically, if Carl Bowlers is like, well, Mina is fast just like Sonic, Sonic's fast, perfect combination. And there you go. Perfect combination. That's basically how he would look at it. That's probably why, as you would point out, he wanted Mina and Sonic to end up together, because they were both fast things. You know, they were both speedsters. But you see, whether or not that was his true intention for the long term or for the short term, doesn't mean it would have happened. You take a look at Ian Flynn. You know, you take a look at the long, drawn-out Iron Dominion and its side arc, Journey to the East. Pretty much from 207 to about 212, and for the 4 issues of Journey to the East and Sonic Universe, there was a subplot in there of Monkey Kong and Sally flirting, kind of getting into a temporary relationship. Now, when some people look at what Ian Flynn did there, they pretty much look at what Ian Flynn did as along the lines of having Sally make Sonic jealous. And Sally saying, hey, if you don't want me to do this, you stick by my side, kind of deal. But I came out here on camera. I typed up on the boards. And I basically said what I felt was the truth and what was going to happen and why it was happening. And I was correct. Basically, the reason Sally and Monkey Kong ended up together during that time was like a situation we had seen before, like let's say in Saved by the Bell. You see, in Saved by the Bell, the writer decided to give Zach and Kelly different love interests to go by and buy them time. To go with and to buy them time before they ultimately got together in the Wedding in Las Vegas movie. So with someone like Zach, let's say Monkey Kong's in that position, Zach ends up with a girl in the Hawaiian Vacation movie, which is only for that movie. It's never referenced again, never talked about again. And then he ends up with another girl in the summer job episodes, in the summer episodes of Saved by the Bell, where they get jobs on a resort. And even though she's mentioned in one aftermath episode leading into the new season, that girl named Stacy the character named Stacy is never mentioned again. And then you have the character of Tori that came in after the Kelly and Jesse actresses left the show for a little bit. She came in, became the love interest of Zach, but as soon as Kelly and Jesse came back, the Kelly and Jesse actresses came back, the Tori character was gone. It was never referenced again. You see, the thing was, what Ian Flynn did, even though it was unpopular in some of the eyes of fans, not you, I'm guaranteeing that. I can guarantee that, but even though it was unpopular in the eyes of some of the fans, you know, it was nothing new. It was basically something we had seen before. I mean, when I looked at this, I said to myself, I pretty much know where it's going. I pretty much know why this is happening. And I was right. It was basically a relationship built specifically for the arc. Now you might say, Amir, what has this got to do with what you're talking about? Well, let me explain. You see, when Carl Bollers, as you would say, wanted to do what he wanted to do, or wanted to plan to do with Sonic and Mina, what you felt he wanted to do, it was mainly perhaps, and look at it this way, perhaps he wanted to do that as part of an arc. And that after that arc, maybe, not saying he would have, because it sounds like, from what I understand, he wanted to make it a permanent deal. But maybe he would have ended it, because it was only specifically for that arc. Can you get what I'm saying? That mainly, specifically, it was for that arc. And I think that's what it could have been, but I'm not saying that. Because from what I've understand from not just you, but a lot of fans, he definitely had big plans in store for Sonic to be with somebody else. But then you take a look at Ken Penders, who, like Ian Flynn, always came back to what, made romantic, came back to the, as I call it, the default romantic coupling, or headline coupling in Sonic and Sally. He always came back to that. True, he would sometimes explore different options. But again, these different options were just for the arcs they were involved in. And you take a look at Jeffrey St. John, one of his creations, if you will, Ken Pender's creations. Since the Princess Sally miniseries, and the backstories of issues 19 and 20, or 17, 18, whatever. But basically, since the backstories, the Princess Sally backstories, and the Princess Sally miniseries, up until about, trying to think, I think a little up until about the 150 issues or the 130 issues or something like that, 140s. Jeffrey was always a secondary love interest for Sally. And yeah, it was a long thing, a long part of this continuity for that to happen. But what happened when we got to around the 1-somethings, I can't remember what they were, the 120s or something like that, I can't remember. The 130s, the 130s or 40s, I can't remember. But what happened? He finally ended up with Hershey the cat, which many fans had been wanting because they knew that was going to happen, but didn't think Archie or Ken Penders would pull the trigger, but he did. He brought those two together. After a long run of Jeffrey always being a secondary love interest to Sally. But they finally got what they wanted. But again, when Sally, let's say all the way up into the early portions, if you will, when she would be around Jeffrey, they would greet each other with a kiss. I remember issue 32 or 31 with the train. That was exactly what happened. The thing is, it was always a love triangle, and that love triangle lasted for quite some time, until finally Ken said enough's enough, well, I'm putting Hershey and Jeffrey together like the fans want, and he did. See, the point is, all he did, as far as the writing goes, as far as Sally goes with Jeffrey, was part of a long drawn-out process to finally get him to Hershey, which, again, I would admit, has been long and drawn out. But the point is, it doesn't matter who writes Sally, or who writes Sonic, or who writes Antoine, or Bunny, or Rotor, or Dulcie maybe, or even Tails. They're always going to put their own unique spin on the character. And whether their goal is to say, hey, I want to stay true to who the character is, maybe make them more to what they were in this portion of the franchise or not, then fine, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. You know, that's their right, because they're writing the book. But again, it doesn't matter. You see, whether somebody would have done something differently or similar in some ways, we'll never know. You know, would Ian Flynn done Endgame differently? No. I mean, Ian Flynn has gone on record, Amir, and has said Endgame is one of his favorites. Heck, he's the one that chose it as his favorite story to be, and he added, heck, he even chose issue 50, which was the finale to Endgame, as his favorite story to put into the first volume of the Best of Sonic the Hedgehog. Go figure. Go figure. Now, again, you know, different writers have their own unique spin on characters and how they feel characters should be and act. Whether they feel the character needs to act the way they were in a certain portion of the franchise, or they feel that this fit, or the fact that they feel that this personality or this situation fits the character better, it's up to them. I mean, honestly, if I was a writer, and I know you'd feel the same, maybe you would agree with this, honestly, if I was a writer, if I was writing the comic, or you were writing the comic, because I know you might or may not agree with this, I would do a poll. I would go out. I would not go in public, well, not in public, but because we have the internet and all that, I would go online and I would ask the fan base, what do they want? Do they want the characters to stay true to the SATIM catapult, to what they were in SATIM? Do they want a mixture? Do they want a writer's own original take on it? What do they want? I would ask them what they want, not what I want, and then I would try to work it into the story. Now, I know you're going to say, yes, what Ian's doing. Ian is trying to give us what we want. Now, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. But if you look at 252's preview pages in here, there's some fans that are a little confused right now about what's going on. I mean, I did a video pretty much that says it's screwing with people's minds. So anyway though, the point is, Amir, I have nothing against Ian Flynn in the way he writes Sally, or the way he writes Sonic, or Antoine, or Bunny, or Rhoda, or Dulcie, or whoever. It's basically the fact that he has his own unique take, just like all the previous writers did. They always put their own unique take on the characters, whether they help the character, whether they keep the characters true to what made them who they are, or not. I mean, take a look at Fiona. When Ken Penders, later on before he left, brought Fiona on as part of the Freedom Fighters, a lot of people actually enjoyed that. Because they felt, hey, finally she's got something to do. She's part of something. You know, she's no longer a background character that just appears out of nowhere here and there. She's right there. She's part of the team. You know, people like that. And, you know, Ian Flynn, he kept that going for 12 issues, at least. Well, 11 issues at least. But then what happened? 172 came along, but what happened? Ian Flynn, in the eyes of some fans, saw an opportunity to add another villainous or anti-hero. Boom, there you go. Instead of choosing or creating an original character, he decides to turn Fiona back to back. And a lot of fans are being like, well, he's never really given an actual explanation for this character turning back. All we've ever heard is, oh, Sonic was too soft. You know, Sonic was, just too soft or too much of a goody-good. He didn't have that edgy side. And, a lot of fans felt that it was stupid. That you basically took potentially a good character, a good freedom fighter character, and put them back to bad for no personal reason. And basically, in some of their eyes, turned her into a Mary Sue dependent on Scourge. You get the point that I'm trying to say? There are going to be some ways that characters are written that fans will like or won't like. I mean, you say, like a lot of fans, that's just a 1-800 service, they're calling the wrong house, I don't know why. But, you say, like a lot of fans, we don't like what Carl Bowles did with Sally's character, especially in 134. How do you think the fans feel about how do you think some fans feel about what Ian Flynn did with Fiona Fox's character in 172? How do you think they feel about that? They don't like it either. Because just like with Carl Bowles and what he did with Sally, they find it stupid, they find it pathetic, they find no reason behind it. And unless, as some of them would look at, unless, this whole countdown to chaos somehow turns her back to good, fans are still going to be like, why did you do, what sense did it make to make her a villain? It didn't. The point is, folks, the point Now, the point is, folks, not folks, but the point is, Amir, and anybody else listening, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, the characters, how they're presented, whether they stay true to what made them who they are, maybe with a writer adding their own unique take on them here and there. It's the writer that ultimately decides exactly where to go with them. Whether they, like I say, whether they keep them true to who they are with their own unique take, or they feel, hey, this is a better suited direction for the character to go in or not. That's basically what it is. And the same with Sally. The same is with Sally. You know, again, I'm not saying Ian hasn't done a good job with her. He has. He's made her close to what made her in Sad AM, if not more, with more of a unique take on what she could have been more so, with more of a, I guess if some fans would be, basically, Ian Flynn made her more to what she was in Sad AM, with more of what fans have been wanting, and as more of a outgoing personality, more of a fun-loving, hey, let's get down, let's have fun, kind of party atmosphere personality at times. You know, kind of a relaxed, down-to-earth deal. So, I'm not saying Ian hasn't accomplished that. He has. You know, it's just how fans look at how he's portrayed her. You know, there are going to be fans that like what, let's say, Carl Bowlers did. There's going to be fans that like what Ken Penders did and Mike Gallagher did. And there are going to be fans like you that like what Ian Flynn has done. And there's going to be fans that are straight in the middle that are like, yeah, there are some good things that these writers did, and there are some good things that Ian has done. But there's also some bad things these guys have done, and there's some bad things Ian has done. And you're going to always have that, no matter what. It all differs on how you see the characters being presented in your eyes by the writers. So, that's what I'm just going to say on it right now, Amir, Ezekiel. If you got a response, let me know down below. I'll talk to you all later.